This is the Demystifying Mental Toughness podcast, hosted by David Charlton, and you're listening to this podcast to help you build your own mental toughness, so that you can support other people or your clients better. Either way, you will learn more about developing this plastic personality trait that all but guarantees that you will perform better and lead a more prosperous life. One of the things that people often get wrong about mental toughness is that it's a male macho trait. And in this episode, three very talented ladies in different fields will go on to demonstrate that this certainly isn't the case. It's a lot more complex than that, is mental toughness. And Kate Mackay goes on to talk about embracing fear. Taz Bricknell shares insights into the commitment levels that are required in professional female rugby and the challenges with juggling full-time work. And Natalie Hurdley also builds on this, talking about commitment levels, as well as sharing insights into having to assert herself in different situations. So first up, we've got this short bite from Kate. And while you're listening to this, I'd like you to consider how fear might be holding you back. And I noticed in your book, you mention about embracing the devil on your shoulder. What do you mean by that?
For me, that's about recognizing the fear and acknowledging it, but you still need to listen to that devil on your shoulder saying, go on, do it, do it, do it. So it's about wanting to do something, but feeling afraid to do it. And snowboarding is a risk sport, and there is a real possibility of serious injury or death with some of the activities. So, but you need to examine that fear objectively and look at the level of risk. Because if you're going to go and snowboard off-piste, say in the backcountry, a long way away from the resort or the boundaries, maybe it's a bad weather day, you haven't got the right equipment, you've got no instructor or guide with you, then you're asking for trouble. Whereas if you're snowboarding on-piste, gentle blue piste, you've got protective equipment on, you might have an instructor with you, the chances are that things, are going to be a lot less risky doing the latter than the former. But it's also about what levels of skill you have and whether you've done things before. So it's actually when you're frightened about doing something and you're looking at what is the inherent risk, you might go, do I need to manage that risk or mitigate it? So an example of this, I was on a snowboarding camp with Tammy and Mint Snowboarding a good few years ago now. And we were going in mid-December. 7 days before we left, there was no snow on the piste at all. And I was thinking, oh my God, what's going to happen here? And in that 7 days, well, probably just before we went, there was masses and masses and masses of snow. Consequently, the weather was bad as well, really low visibility, snowing, massive high winds. But because there hadn't been much snow, there was hardly anybody around on the piste. And one of the days there, we'd been snowboarding in the morning just as a group of us, and then we were meeting Tammy and we were going to snowboard together in the afternoon. And we'd been in one valley and we had to cross over into the other valley on the chairlifts and back down to meet Tammy. Now, the weather started to deteriorate, and as we came up the chairlift, when we came off the top of the chairlift on the ridge, it's usually where there's 3 chairlifts meet there, and usually it's really, really busy. There was nobody but us, and it was so difficult. You were worried that the wind was going to catch your snowboard because it was that bad. And when we set off, we couldn't see anything, but I'd been that way many times before. So I knew in my mind's eye where I was. But because there's quite a long flat section, you have to get up a bit of speed. And if you don't get enough speed up, then you grind to a halt. And I didn't get enough speed up. Nearly everybody else had disappeared. And I was completely on my own on this sort of plateau, really, in this howling sort of maelstrom. I could just about make out one of the men had stopped because he realised I wasn't with the group, just to check. And I carried on down. We met Tammy and we decided, she took us to another chairlift. And as we snowboarded down, we noticed everybody was walking towards us, and they were said that it's now too dangerous to get on the chairlifts. They're closing the resort. So we had to basically take our boards off, walk back up. And Tammy said to the group of us, you've got two choices. You either go down in the lift or you come down this piste with me. Now, the piste was what we call the home run, which is a great piste, one of my favourite pistes. It's got a bit of everything. But across the front of the piste was some bright orange netting that said it was closed. And I'd said to Tammy, look, it's closed. She said, it's fine, you'll be with me, but you've got a choice. Now, from my point of view, I had to think about what was the risk here. Earlier on in the week, and I haven't got time to go into it now, but I'd had quite things hadn't gone well, and I'd been quite poorly and on my own on the piste. It was my own fault, nothing to do with Mint snowboarding. And I had to decide, what do I do? So two of the women immediately said, I'm going down in the cable car. And in the end, it was me and one man who said, no, we'll come down with you. And I thought about it objectively. I thought, I'm with an instructor that I trust implicitly and other people. I'm actually descending the mountain into the valley. So I'm not as high as I was previously when we got off the chairlift and in the middle, with just us there. Help was not far away if I needed it. I knew the run, so I knew I could do it. And I thought part of the problem with this run was earlier on in the week, there hadn't been enough snow to cover the lower part. So I thought, if I have to hike out, Tammy had caveated it, we're going to do this run. I can't tell you how it's going to turn out, but it will be an adventure. We might have to take our boards out and we might have to hike with them on our backs, get out at the end. I knew I could do it if I had to. So I objectively looked at that and went, right, I'm going to do this run. And we strapped our boards on. The first bit of the run is quite narrow and the wind was horrendous. But as we turned and dropped, the wind, we must have changed direction, the wind dropped, and in front of us was this pristine powder piste that nobody had been down. And it was the best run of my life. It was fantastic. Now, I could have said, do you know what? This is a bit scary. I don't want to do it. And I was frightened. I was a bit frightened, might have been too strong. I was a bit nervous. Should I do it? Shouldn't I do it? If it had just been with a group of pals, I might not have done it. But because I was with Tammy, I knew I'd be safe. And towards the end, the snow was pretty sketchy. And she had said to us, follow exactly in my tracks, because of the way the snow was falling, the topography. And I did see a skier who was going too fast, hit a depression and was launched out of his skis. I mean, he was being a bit of an idiot. But I knew I was safe with her. So that's what I mean, that sometimes you have to think about what is the real fear here, and is this something I can either manage and mitigate? Can I do something else, or is it really fear? Is it actually to do with me and my self-belief?
Yeah, and it sounds from what you're saying there, well, one part of mental toughness is being able to manage your emotions and control your emotions. It sounds like you didn't let your emotions get so high, so you weren't able to think objectively.
No, and I think, but that's developed over time. So going back to my previous sort of weeks that I'd had in Chamonix, I had let my emotions dictate things, and I hadn't had that opportunity to grow and think about the journey that I've had learning to snowboard that's helped develop some of these things. And even now, occasionally, although, I could get down practically any run in a resort now, it might not be very elegant, but I could do it. But some days we have good days and bad days. And there might be some days where I just think, do you know what? It's really icy. I don't have to do that. I don't want to do it. So I'm going to go and do something else that's more fun for me, without beating myself up that I didn't do it.
Hearing Kate talk about embracing fear and her story about having to get down the mountain in treacherous conditions, calculating the risks involved whilst trying to contain her emotions, goes on to highlight 3 areas of mental toughness. The one I haven't touched on there would be also the importance of having confidence, belief in your ability. In Kate's case, having the confidence in her snowboarding skills and the mental and physical capacity to walk, hike down different parts of the mountain if it was required. And she talked there also about objectively weighing up the risks involved. being able to take a step back and not let our emotions get out of control. And I'm sure you, the listener, have been in situations in your sport, in your work, your life, where you have been fearful. You have got in your own way. You've let your emotions overload and get in the way. And then perhaps, you may have later regretted some decisions that you actually took. So on that note, you'll find in the show notes a useful resource. That's right, the resource is called a SWOT analysis, which I'm sure some of the listeners will be aware of. It's a great resource to help you weigh up situations where maybe there is some uncertainty, some fear there, and it can help you certainly not waste too much emotional energy and look at things objectively. It can give you a different perspective. And SWOT, SWOT, stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And I'd encourage you to use a notepad or a journal and just to consider any difficult situations that you face now or have done in the past, any situations which cause you fear or uncertainty, and write down the strengths around that situation, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats. And after spending a good 5-10 minutes on this, you'll be able to come up with some actions and feel more in control of that situation, I guarantee it. And on this topic, our guest, the next guest, Taz Bricknell, highlights the challenging parts to a career in women's professional rugby. And you're going to hear that Taz has a very, very positive mentality, a can-do attitude, which is associated with mental toughness. She's also very highly driven and committed to sport. However, you will also hear about the challenges involved there. Enjoy. Being a woman playing sport, do you find that there is negativity that comes with that at all?
Yeah, 100%. I think if you look at women's sport to where it was a few years ago, it's definitely grown. And there are things like in rugby and in football that you have those professional athletes now. So with rugby, all of the women that play for England that are contracted, that's their job. And that's an amazing step from where we were a few years ago. Obviously, I think the sport is still growing and developing. So I don't think anytime soon we'll have professional contracts for clubs like the men do. But as I said, some clubs now are getting match fees, things like that. So the sports are developing and growing. But yeah, it is hard. And I think any female athlete will agree that we do struggle with having to find a routine, a schedule, because obviously when you look at the likes of men rugby players, they are full-time athletes. That's their job. They train all day, every day. They play, and it's amazing. Obviously, that's what we want. That's what we want to kind of aspire to be. But with women's sports, obviously, it is semi-pro or even still in some countries amateur. So people like myself are having to juggle a full-time job, a career, even a university degree, whilst playing a sport which is pretty much full-time. And I do think that's really hard and something that people don't take into consideration when they think about women's sports. And I think we've had a lot of trolling on social media, a lot of bullying, a lot of negativity that came out. There's been a few campaigns. There's been an I Am Enough one and an I Care. That I have absolutely taken the women's sporting industry forward. We've had support, not just in rugby, but in every single sport. And I think that's really nice because it brings that kind of female athlete together. And it's not just from your elite levels of sport, it's from your grassroots sports, people that maybe be exporting people, but it really does bring those people together. And it's nice to see that we have that support in such a down kind of, yeah.
When you talk there about trying to mix working life as well as training and playing sport, what does a general week look like to you in normal circumstances?
Yeah, so in normal, I would work 8 to 5 Monday to Friday. On a Monday evening, I would have gym and skills. So that would start around 5:30 till 8ish, 7:30, 8ish. Again, on Tuesday, that would usually start. We can get to the gym for half 4 and we would finish around 8:30, 9 o'clock. Wednesdays we usually have the day off, so it's away from the club. However, we do have an off-feet conditioning that we have to complete, so that would be Wednesday evening. Thursday we're back in at the club again from 4:30 till around 8:30, 9 o'clock for our training. Friday is usually again another off day, so we wouldn't be in the club that day, but it is a day for us to prepare for our games, obviously the following day. So it'll be things like yoga sessions, an off-feet session if you need it, little bits and bobs like that really. And then Saturday's obviously your game day, and then Sunday's recovery. So yeah, it is quite hard obviously with life rugby and work, and with my work being rugby orientated, my life is just rugby, and that is something I struggle with sometimes. It is hard, and I think people don't appreciate that. The amount of sacrifices that we have to make, things like friends' birthday parties that we have to miss, family occasions that we have to miss, weddings, anything that falls on a Saturday during season we can't make, anything that's weekly in the evenings we can't make because of training. And it like sometimes I even work a Sunday as well, so a Sunday morning, because as I said, I work in the community, so most youth rugby is a Sunday morning. So if I have to go in and do a coaching session, that will be my Sunday as well, which then means I don't really have a day off. When in the long run of things, it's always go, which is very hard to kind of then know which week is what, and it just kind of rolls into one long week rather than being 4 in a month. But yeah, that is something that female athletes do have to take into consideration.
Yeah, it's amazing. That is really, I mean, how many hours obviously you're putting into that? It doesn't leave much time for you to rest and recover as well.
No, it doesn't, not at all. Especially when, like, my housemate is a trainee teacher at the minute, so she gets up every morning at 6:30 to go to work, and then obviously some nights could be up till 9:30, 10 o'clock before we get home from training. And then it's obviously we are in a really good position at Worcester where we do get fed after training, so we don't ever have to come home and cook dinner. But there are still clubs out there that you would have to come home, cook dinner, have a shower, then go to bed, and you're not going to bed till 11:30, and you've got to get up at 6 a.m. the next day. It's not ideal.
Definitely, after you've been on your feet all day as well, and as well as the training. I interviewed Ali Dixon, the marathon runner, a few weeks ago, and she talked about how, like, she quit her job when she was in her mid-30s to go full time as an athlete, and how big a difference that actually made then to her performances was amazing. Yeah. So yeah, let's hope you're in a similar position in the not too distant future.
Yeah, hopefully that would be amazing, honestly. And I think, as you said, it would really drive the sport forward, I think, because as you say, like, we have a lot of trolling on social media, and it is usually from males that say they don't care about the sport or the men's better. But if you flip that on its head, men are full-time athletes, and that is their job. They get paid to train, to play, to gym. If we were able to do that as well, then we would be maybe on par with them. But at the moment, you have to kind of take it as the male and the female. Yes, we're both playing rugby, but they are very different games. They're different. They're differently run. They're differently structured. Especially with COVID, with the rules changed at the minute, we have adaptations in our game that the men's don't in theirs. So they are looking very different at the minute. But yeah, having to juggle everything on top of that is extremely hard. And I think sometimes you're not going to realise that until you're put in that position. So I think it's very easy to sit the other side of a keyboard and make a comment on a post. But I think people need to actually think about what they're saying before they say it, and how that's going to affect the athlete that's actually in that position.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, there's a person at the other side of the keyboard, isn't there? A human being who's, when in your case, you're doing 70, 80 hours, if you like, with your full-time job, then your training and everything else into the mix, which takes up a hell of a lot of time, energy, and emotion. So yeah, certainly hats off to you from my side.
Thank you.
I'm pleased to announce a new sponsor for the show, Chimera Sport, who produce a range of sportswear and equipment to enhance performance and recovery, reducing injury occurrences. You'll find on the product section of our website, www.excellence.co.uk/products, access to our own Chimera Sports Shop. I've personally tested some of the garments, and you'll find that the infrared sportswear has been clinically tested too, so it's great for fitness enthusiasts and athletes who want to push harder, go further and recover quicker. Listening to Taz again really got me thinking. I've worked with a number of very talented female athletes across a range of sports now for the best part of 10 years. And when you consider the cultural demands, both from society, the pressures from clubs or governing bodies, peer pressure, maternal pressures and instincts, and the fact that certainly at professional level, the salaries and funding paid out to female athletes in comparison to male athletes takes one hugely determined person to keep on going and going despite these challenges and difficulties. And I've seen firsthand some of the struggles that female athletes can come across: burnout, exhaustion, and then some issues with their mental health because of the systems and the processes in place and such injustices. So sport, yes, it's making changes, thankfully, and it's considering the needs of women better, but it certainly does have a long way to go. You could argue that some women who play professionally are actually more mentally tough than some of their male counterparts because of these additional challenges that they face. Sport and life to them certainly does build up their mental toughness through experience. And next up, Natalie Hurdley backs this up, where she talks about her grueling training in powerlifting at an elite level, whilst also trying to juggle personal training career.
No, I don't really. I think I entered the sport at the right time for me, because it's a sport where you have to accept that you're going to spend long periods of time with what looks like no progression at all, which can be really frustrating. And I entered it at a time where I believe my body was at the right stage to progress. And fortunately, I mean, it's been a year and a bit. So this September coming, it'll be 2 years that I've been doing it. And my body has continued to progress strength-wise all the way through that period, which is quite rare for somebody in my sport.
That must be quite a nice feeling as well, to see that gradual progression as well, and notice your body changing, you getting stronger and lifting heavier weights.
It's amazing. And I can't help but think, when is my plateau going to come? But I'm also a big believer in not worrying about what I can't change and the law of attraction. So I'm like, if I keep thinking about it, it's going to come sooner. So just don't think about it.
True, you can't control it, can you? All you can control is what you put into each and every session.
Yeah, and I'm fully aware of the science behind it, and I'm fully aware that eventually it's just going to be a natural course that my body has to take, whether that's going to be through repair, recovery, a different type of growth. I'll only know when it happens.
What are the commitment levels that are required then to keep on progressing? Do you want to describe how you've gone about things over the last couple of years?
Yeah, so we train 4 days a week. We train bench press, chest, triceps and abs on a Monday. Then on a Tuesday, our main lift is deadlift, and we do deadlift, block pulls, upper back work, lower back work and biceps. Then Wednesday, we have rest day. Thursday is what we call top bench, which is where you bench off a block that's on your chest, so it's not as deep. And then the rest of the workout is shoulders and abs. And then on Friday, our main lift is back squat, and then it's just leg day. So Friday is a killer. And then Saturday and Sunday, you just can't walk properly. So Saturday, Sunday is all about rest. For me, Wednesday and Saturday, I do active recovery work, which is where I get my cardio in. So I do a little bit of cardio. I do nothing crazy. I do a lot of stretching and a lot of mobility work on those 2 days, and then Sundays complete rest day. And then obviously you've got the nutritional commitment side, which is a massive learning curve, because I know how to eat healthy for my body and I know how to eat before and after a workout. But what's interesting with powerlifting is, in an ideal world, you'll actually go through probably 3 weight cycles in a 14-week period, which can do a lot of damage to your mental health if you are one of these people who obsesses over the scales. And I'll explain what I mean. So during our training period leading up to a competition, they want you to train at your heaviest. So you put weight on, they're fine with it. They're like train, eat, sleep, train, eat, sleep, pile the calories in, because you need to fuel your workout. You need the strength to fuel your workout, so pile the calories in. And they don't care what calories that is, and then it's up to you then to go, well, actually, for my internal health, I care what kind of calories that is. And then the last week before the competition, you need to get into your weight category. So they want you to drop weight, and they want you to drop as much as possible in 5 days. Now, you don't have to drop that much necessarily. It depends what weight class you want to go into, and it depends how much weight you've put on through your training. But they want you to drop as much weight as possible because it gives you the advantage. Then on the 24 hours before we compete, we get weighed, and they want you to weigh in at your lightest. But then over the 24-hour period, they want you to eat as much as possible and put on as much weight as possible for the competition. So you've got 24 hours to eat like a pig, pile the weight back on, and use it to your advantage. Again, it can be quite unhealthy, but it depends. It kind of depends how you as an individual take it. For me, what I will do is I will, like I said, even though I'm allowed to just pile the calories in, I'm still very mindful of what's going on with my organs and the inside of my body and my health in that regard. So I don't overdo it on that side. And I'm also very mindful that I don't want to have too big of a weight drop. I don't want to put myself under that much pressure. So I don't tend to put on that much weight during the training because of that. And then in the 24 hours where you're allowed to eat what you want, I just treat that like a cheat day, the ultimate cheat day. And I do it. I don't do it for the competition necessarily. I do it for the enjoyment because I like my food.
So you'll have plenty of nice little treats and sweets and puddings and stuff like that.
Yeah, the Saturday, the day before the competition is usually a Saturday, and it is the best day ever.
Brilliant. I can imagine though the whole dropping weight and changing weight there, it must be quite taxing mentally for some people.
Yeah, I do think if you're gonna do it that way, you have to have some sort of strength mentally, and definitely no sort of history of an eating disorder or anything like that. And if somebody was thinking about going into the sport, or somebody wanted to go into the sport, I would tell them to really think about whether they want to actually use that technique or not. It's not something that my coach has ever forced upon me. But again, because of my job and because of my background, I'm really into the science. So when he first told me about it, I was like, okay, but why? But why? I'm really, really sure I annoyed him a lot with all my questions, but it was really important for me to understand why I was going to put my body through this and whether it was going to be worth it before I did it. And I do it, but I do it in a very subtle way. And I train with some people who take it to extremes, but mentally it works for them. So they do it that way, and I decided not to.
Yeah, I suppose everybody's different, aren't they, in that way. I would have thought, like, over the years, probably going into the past, it may have, I don't know, may have harmed and may have damaged people with the mindset. But I mean, now, I suppose nowadays there's more coverage, isn't there, around mental health and different things like that.
Oh, and it's what's really important is that you find, if you are going to go into something like that, even if it's for amateur or if it's just for a hobby, find a coach that's going to support you and respect your decision if you decide not to go down that route. Because my coach is fantastic like that. He will tell me something and I'll question it. And I won't question it because I don't believe him. I'll question it because I want to understand it, because that's what I enjoy. And I find it really fascinating. So he'll explain it to me and then I'll go, well, actually, I don't think that's good. I don't think that's going to be good for me because of X, Y, Z. And he'll go, okay, no problem. And he'll work with me around that. He's very supportive and I respect him for that massively.
It's clear that Natalie demonstrates amazing patience on a day-to-day level, and she has full trust in her process, in the way that she trains, where because of the slow adaptations in her body, it could be so easy to get in her own head, to get in her own way and self-sabotage her chances of success. But no, she remains very, very positive and does seem to take control of her destiny. So I take my hat off to Natalie for that, and for any other athletes who are involved in powerlifting. And a really interesting part of the conversation, which I'm going to go on to discuss now, links to another element of mental toughness, interpersonal confidence. Clearly, Natalie has this in abundance. She's inquisitive and she's not afraid to ask questions of her coaches. I've seen a lot in other sports. Yes, powerlifting. It could be rowing, horse racing, and many combat sports, that this quality of interpersonal confidence is so important. Athletes, when they're competing, can feel the pressure, yes, from themselves, but also from other people, from clubs, from organisations. And if their self-esteem is not intact, if they're not able to assert themselves and recognise that they have choices to make, some can go on to make some unhealthy choices. Competing, it can stress many an athlete out, and their personal values can be compromised, especially if there's undue pressure from other sources. And when I talk about unhealthy choices, what I mean by that is unhealthy eating habits. That's right, because the fact is, in these sports, as Natalie touched on, you are going to have choices to make around your food. You're going to have decisions to make about dropping weight, increasing weight. It's all part of these sports, and it can risk serious eating disorders. Though I'm not going to go on and discuss this topic in depth because, after all, I'm a sports psychologist and that's out of my remit. That's where a clinical psychologist would take over. But I do want to just get the point out there that interpersonal confidence is a quality that is very, very important in these sports, but also should be looked at by governing bodies, by clubs, and try and develop and promote that in athletes. Just like Natalie. Natalie highlighted the importance of communicating well, of asserting herself, of standing up for herself. And these are important ingredients of mental toughness. And on that note, in a recently released online accelerator course, you also have the opportunity to think more deeply about your values, about your communication style, your support system, and take some ownership, take some control over your future The Accelerator course is all about helping you achieve your goals faster and to help you stay on track despite difficulties, despite pressures from outside influences. The course takes around about 60 minutes to complete. That's right, in 1 hour, this course has a range of exercises, a range of tools that can go on to assist you in your chosen sport and help to give you a boost. So go on, check out my website, sport-excellence.co.uk, and under products and online courses, you'll be able to see it. The details are in the show notes. And on the subject of interpersonal confidence, tomorrow's episode also promises to be a good one, where Paul McGee, one of the guests on that show, will share some tips on asserting yourself. If you enjoyed this episode of the Demystifying Mental Toughness podcast with David Charlton, do check out my website, sport-excellence.co.uk, and my online sport psychology resources. The Sport-Excellence website has essential resources for anyone looking to build their own mental toughness or the mental toughness of their athletes or teams, or if you want to achieve peak performance more often or optimal functioning. The Sport Excellence website has everything you need to keep moving forward and thrive. So go on, head over to sport-excellence.co.uk to find out more.